Welcome to the Lights Out podcast. This is Chris Lights Out Lytle, and this is our journey to document the history of mixed martial arts. I have brought with me my friend, the MMA detective Mike Davis, and together we will preserve the history and hear some great stories from the world in the era of the no-holds-barred. Thank you and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have got a special guest right here, all the way from the Ultimate Fighter 2, by way of the East Coast. That is the right side of the map for everybody at home. This gentleman right here, Luke Cummo. Luke, what's up, brother?
Hey, Mike. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. It's been a minute since I've been on like a legitimate podcast. You guys must be running out of guests to ask me.
Well, you said legitimate, so I'd be very careful throwing that word around here. We're going to get shadow banned if you keep doing that, Luke. So, so we're an MMA history podcast, and we like to take things slow. We like to, I've done a ton of research like on your career, and what I like to do is just take it slow. If we get to all of it, we get to all of it. If we don't, we don't. But right now, the focus is on you and making sure that your story is told from your perspective. We've had guests on that I really didn't like personally, but it doesn't matter. The way the questions are asked, you obviously don't fall into that category, but the way the questions are asked, it's all your perspective on you. And that's what we do here. So why don't we kind of start? Well, first off, what are you doing right now? I know you're kind of transitioning with gyms. Do you feel like giving a plug to what it is you got going on?
Yeah, well, let's see. Okay, so basically, Mike, I did an Irish goodbye to my old camp.
For those at home, that means you just leave and not say anything to anybody. But go ahead.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was vaccinated as a child. I had a mild traumatic brain injury. And I think just boys in general aren't as social, especially growing up on video games. It's like you're watching a screen of action and you're killing people, and I don't know, I'm justifying my actions. People kind of turned their back on me when I came back, but I left Longo and Serra and I went to California to study under a special doctor for brain injury.
Okay.
Mine was mild, more of a repetitive stress type of, almost like a carpal tunnel or a cataract in the brain from the subconcussive impact. If you look at my record, I never got knocked out.
Never been finished. No.
Over the years of sparring and we didn't know back then. For example, me and Pete Sell, Drago, we used to do every Sunday ground and pound training where we'd wear MMA gloves. We'd wear these special elbow pads called Martial Armor. There's only one company that makes them, Century Martial Arts. And I did like product review of all the different types of headgears, and eventually settled on this one that kind of looks like a catcher's mask, where it's got hard plastic here and two pieces like this.
Okay.
And that was the only one that didn't break from people like Drago punching me in the face.
Well, let me interject.
Yeah.
You talked about TBI. Have you looked at the studies involving psilocybin and brain health?
Yeah, well, to be honest, Mike, I weep if I take psilocybin. I just think about my family because I'm divorced and I don't really get to see my kids a lot because I'm broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I used a lot of marijuana, but that didn't really progress me forward. It was just kind of like an emotional painkiller. But the psilocybin just makes me relive the trauma. And I'm like, it doesn't really, I mean, I guess it's helpful to be aware of it.
Or let go, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like opening a wound every time I do it. So I did
You
it a few
got
times.
what about a microdose?
Yeah, microdose is okay. It's I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's definitely something I would do once in a while. For
Yeah.
me, the best what I found to be the best medicine, honestly, is hard physical exercise and um, progressing towards my goals, both personal and career wise.
Smart move. Smart move. I think we've got a psilocybin. I shouldn't say that. We've got a mushroom sponsor coming on board soon. Amanita muscaria and pantherina. So I
Okay.
think I'm going to be sending some of those out to some of our listeners soon.
I heard,
Let's kind of start out, dude. 2007. In December of 2007, Ken Pavia lived with you to try your diet out.
oh yeah.
Would you mind taking us through your experience with Ken?
Cool. Yeah. So I'm actually in the same apartment. My father, for some reason, he bought two properties, number 13, the house I grew up in, and this building, which is like 20 minutes away. It's a 3-story apartment building. Right now, only the third floor is occupied. I'm in it. And I'm trying to take over the building and turn it into a health center. So people like Ken or anybody could come in from out of town and have a room, have all their food prepared for them, train, get massages, and just do this complete healing protocol that I'm now certified in. Back then, I think he was actually trying to sign me onto his management company. Which I didn't end up doing because the way that he advertised it to me was that I would basically be signing on to his uh, sponsors. And I was really stubborn back then. I still kind of am. Like, for example, like I turned down 40 grand a year from Zions because I didn't want to promote their supplements. I thought like, oh, some kid is going to be looking up to me and thinking that Zions is what Luke Cummo, is promoting. My wife didn't like that. 40 grand a year.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine that wouldn't go over well.
so if I could do it all over, I still probably wouldn't do that, but I would probably stay married. Anyway, Ken came for a week, I think, maybe 2 weeks. He lived in this apartment. I think I was on the top floor. He was on the second floor. I made all his food. We trained. We went to the city. We did the sauna. He lost a bunch of weight, and I think he had a good time.
Did
But
he
we
drink?
didn't end up coming to terms on an agreement.
What was the breaking point? Why wouldn't you go with him?
We never really sat down to it. I think he just got the gist of it, but it was never any like negotiations discussed. We're kind of hanging out, and I think maybe and it was a long time ago, so I don't remember the details, but I think maybe just from just interacting, he knew, I was self-managed my whole career. That's probably why I only made 150 grand total.
Oh man, that's rough. Did Ken drink his own urine?
Nope. He did drink olive
Your
oil
urine
and lemon juice as part of a liver flush.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. If you're trying to get Master Lukey under contract, you got to at least drink your own piss. Can we at least agree on that? I mean, it's got to be one of the boxes that gets checked, right?
Definitely a plus, Mike.
There we go.
That's commitment, huh?
Well,
me and Lyoto, team, the yellow team.
Right. Let's talk about your first fight ever. It was under Lou Neglia.
Right.
What was your experience like with him as a promoter?
Okay, so Ray Longo and Lou Neglia were co-promoters. And I came into Longo's gym at 19 years of age after training in Kung Fu for 4 or 5 years. So I had a background in martial arts, and my favorite thing always was sparring. So Ray saw that I had a bit of skill development already, and he saw at the end of class we would do sparring, and I was better than like the rest of the students, so he put me with the fighters. And the two fighters that I first sparred with, after I had like sparred with the best students in class, like the students who sparred with the fighters. So I went from the students who sparred with the fighters to actually sparring with the fighters. And the two fighters that I sparred with, one's named James Onikian, who was American kickboxing, which I don't know if you knew back then. This is what Lou Neglia did, was where they had the boots, the padded boots, the long pants.
Yes.
You could only kick above the waist, no leg kicks, and no knees. So it was like, came from the PKA, the Professional Karate Association. So Lou Neglia, he was a hard style karate man, and Joe Louis, I think Chuck Norris, Benny the Jet Urquidez, that style. So the guy was James Onikian, and he also was a Golden Gloves boxer. He broke my neck with a left hook. He punched my right in the tip of the chin and spun my head so far this way, my neck cracked. That was the first time my neck got broken. Second time was in jiu-jitsu from a head and arm choke that I didn't tap out to because I was a dumbass. The other guy I sparred was Mike Ryan, who was a heavyweight American kickboxing champion. And he was known for calling up drug dealers to buy crack and then knocking them out and stealing the money back and the crack. And they both beat the shit out of me the first day. But I came back. This is when Ray knew I would be a good fighter. I came back the next time, and not only did I come back, but I had improved. Not that I was better than them, but I fought hard. You know, I had adjusted my strategy. So I became a student, not a student. I became like, one of the better fighters in the gym. I started training under a student of Matt Serra in the jiu-jitsu program, because Ray's a Jeet Kune Do guy. So we would do jiu-jitsu in the ring after class. And then I started to train at Matt's school extra. Right?
Wait. Let me just back up just a little bit. So how do you meet Ray Longo? I mean, you're a traditional martial artist.
Yeah.
And you wind up over in obviously one of the country's most elite places to train. So what gets you through those doors?
Well, you're talking about really the early days of UFC, the dark days, is when Matt Serra started. He got his start in what they would call grappling exhibition. There wasn't even MMA back then. They had MMA gloves, which they didn't cover the fingers. They just covered like the back of the hand. I think they were allowed open palm strikes, and this is under Lou Neglia's banner. And this
what gets you through the door
really
over there?
as elite as you'd know it.
Oh, okay. Now. So who puts the word in your ear that maybe you should do a little bit of training over with Ray Longo?
Yeah, I had a bout of depression when I was 18. I left Kung Fu, and I was driving a pizza. I was delivering pizza. I was driving a tow truck, and I was driving a cab. Different driving jobs, because it was like, for me, it was like a bullshit job that I could just make some money. And I drove by. It said Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do on the awning. Jeet Kune Do kickboxing. So Ray's program had Muay Thai. If you go to a Jeet Kune Do gym, they got all the different classes: Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, Western boxing, the weapons arts. So Ray had a mostly Muay Thai class, but he also had one of Matt's students teaching Jiu-Jitsu there who was a blue belt. And they said, after I got into the Jiu-Jitsu, I did like a couple of tournaments. I didn't get invited, but I was told about Matt's other school. So I started to go train directly under Matt. And Matt was getting ready for the UFC. So I became one of his sparring partners, because back then it was like style versus style. Shoney Carter, Yves Edwards, more like striking. Shoney Carter's more around, but Yves Edwards, he was more like a striker. So I was like his opponent for a lot of his early fights. I was his major sparring partner, Matt.
So you would mimic the style of the people. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. I was lanky. I had good striking. I knew how to use my range. I would do something with my lead leg, my left leg, and I would just blast people in the solar plexus and the liver with the front kick, the left front kick, And so they would start to hunch over like this. If I'm backwards, this is my left side, this is my right side, right? Because I would hit them on the right side and they would drop like this. And then I would do kind of like a question mark kick where my lead leg would come up like a front kick, but then I would turn it over their glove and just kick him right in the head. And the first time I sparred with Matt, I did it to him. And he was like the only UFC fighter in this whole circle. So he was like the superstar, and everybody was like, like I just broke a priceless vase in somebody's house, but they're like, oh my God. And Ray's like, you okay? And Matt, he's just like a hard-headed Italian. He goes, I love it. And then he gave me a concussion with that right hand. He developed that right hand on my head mostly.
In my opinion, if you look at Matt Serra's early fights, his ability to transition as well as understand the stand-up game, he was very ahead of his time. People caught up to him, but with what he was in the beginning as compared to everybody else, pound for pound, he may have been one of, if not the best in the world.
Yeah, his submission chains you're talking about.
Oh, and then his hard stand-up. But his submission change, but it's not just that, though. It's adaptation from his submissions into mixed martial arts.
Oh,
because the people with that high ability of jiu-jitsu, they just couldn't transition, not like Matt Serra.
He has the mentality, but like just think of his fight against GSP. That's all mentality. To believe in himself, he really is a fighter. Some people, I would consider myself more of a martial artist. Like, I'm not really a fighter, but Matt's a martial artist, but he really has that fighter's mentality. And that's one of the reasons why he was so aggressive. Like, he didn't think. Everything was just trained so much. There's stories of him training with his two brothers and his father until the wee hours of the morning, just repping these submission chains over and over and over and over and over. Thousands of repetitions where in a fight, he's not thinking. The story about Shoney Carter, he got knocked out twice. The first time, he doesn't remember the rest of the fight. And you watch after the first time he got hit with the spinning back fist. There was a lot of action, up, down. He almost got Shoney Carter in the omoplata. He doesn't remember that. That was all instinct, all reaction, all training.
Incredible. What about
but they needed the last minute replacement, just back to your original question, for Ring of Combat #1. They needed a last minute replacement, and that was my first MMA fight, and they didn't have amateur MMA back then, so I just went straight to pro MMA.
So you're talking about Kadri?
Yep.
And it's Ring of Combat 1. It's October 12th, 2002. And the one thing that I always kind of like to remind people is the Ring of Combat was the same ring that Ring of Honor Pro Wrestling used. So like the bounce that you would see from people, it was almost it's cartoonish in certain instances because of the bounce from the spring of the ring.
I'm gonna have to trust you on that, but I'm gonna say that I only know of one event that was the case, and that was when I fought Josh Koscheck. As far as I know, the other events it was a custom ring that they brought, but what happened was for Ring of Combat, I believe it was Ring of Combat 6 when I fought Josh Koscheck, they were using the Ring of Honor ring that you're talking about. It was only 3 ropes. It had that bounce in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm in the ring just before the event.
Hey, look, we'll get to all that. Hold up, real quick. Nick Serra. What was it like working out with him?
Nick Serra, he dislocated my shoulder on a whizzer. The guy was strong. The guy was intense. He very, very talented, especially in jiu-jitsu. Look, it takes a special kind of crazy to do MMA, Mike. I was watching a fight on Instagram. There's a local guy. He's a Gracie Baja black belt. And watching him fight, it looks like UFC 1 Royce Gracie. He throws a jab cross, ducks into a single leg, and he won the fight in 15 seconds. But Matt really, and Chris Weidman's another one, they really absorbed the striking as part of their game, not just to get to the wrestling, but they were complete fighters. But guys like Nick and Joe Scarola, another Matt Serra black belt, they only used the striking to get to the grappling. And I'm not judging them. I understand why, because you can't recover from a brain injury like you can from an injury to your arm. The brain is made out of fat. It's not made out of a muscle. It's not made out of bone. It doesn't get the same type of circulation. The only thing the brain can do is scar. It doesn't heal. All you can get out of a brain injury is a scar. So I kind of think of it as a subconscious strategy where it was safer for Nick Serra to get TKO'd on his back for not standing up than to stand up and get knocked out. And Chris Weidman to throw a spinning hook kick out of nowhere, which people say, oh, that's a dumb move. But he got TKO'd where the punches were just kind of hitting him rather than him standing up and get a clean knockout from Luke Rockhold. This kind of a conspiracy, a weird theory that I have, but I believe that the subconscious mind is very powerful and people do things without even thinking. But Nick Serra, he didn't really push himself to get the stand-up. And I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying that, he was a really, really good grappler. But when somebody knows that you're not a threat standing up, your takedowns aren't going to work either because you can't bridge that gap. There's always going to be a moment where you have to go from the strike that is not going to do anything to the clinch. And that in that distance, they're going to tee off. So it's like you're going to get hit with a flying knee. You're going to get hit with an uppercut. You're going to get hit with their hardest punch coming in. And so I think that's why he didn't have success in his MMA fight, because guys like Benji Radek, they were never threatened by his stand-up. And his last fight, is kind of hard to watch because you care for somebody as a person. And he really is a nice guy, like a genuine soul. He just, it's kind of like a man-child like myself, where we never really had a real job. So he would go from sleeping late to teaching the morning jiu-jitsu class to having a pizza, playing video games, watching Lord of the Rings, going back to teach the evening class, and then going back home, having more pizza, watching more Lord of the Rings type of thing. I'm not judging. I'm just explaining. This is kind of like what happened to me too with my marriage, and why, I don't really see my my kids, because I just never was able to provide. Most martial artists have either they either own the gym, have a side gig, or the rare few that make it to the elite level where they can fight as a career. Like I think Chris is a fireman, right?
Yeah, Chris Lytle. Yeah, he's a fireman. Yeah, Luke, Chris actually stopped being a fireman, and he works for BKFC. So he does color commentary for them for like the statewide shows, in the United States, and travels quite a bit. And then all the European shows, they're flying him across the country to do studio stuff. And then in between then, he's doing prospect tryouts. He hasn't even been on here this year. Like he's just swamped. But that's why I hold the fort down. Like, it's just something we do. It's passion. It's a passion project for us.
I appreciate you, Mike.
Come on, dude. All right, so Kadir.
I have an affinity for all our people in the martial arts community. So extra appreciation for bringing it all together.
Yeah, dude. This is a history channel. So Kadri, you took a last minute fight against him.
$500.
Were you the B-side? Was he a big ticket seller?
He was the champion under Lou Neglia for kickboxing, but zero grappling. Okay. I was a blue belt at the time, and I took him down. My wrestling is terrible. I get taken down by high school wrestlers. I get submitted by purple belts. I am not a good grappler. I was able to survive, thankfully, to jiu-jitsu and all my UFC bouts. But for me to take this guy down, get on top of him in half guard, and I just sat up and started punching him, and he started punching back up at me. And we're sitting there just trading punches, and I'm on top, so obviously my punch is going to be more powerful. I ended up hitting him with like a jab cross, hook cross or something, and he just went out like that. And they had a rules meeting beforehand. They said if the person gets hit with like 4 punches in a row unanswered, they're going to stop the fight. This is before they had the unified rules and stuff like that. So I think I hit him with a jab cross, hook cross. He went out, and he might have woke back up eventually. But yeah, it was the early days of MMA. It was in a ring, and it was 4 rings. That's why I'm saying I think it was actually Ring of Combat's own ring. But later on, like I was saying against Josh Koscheck, there was something that happened where they had to use the actual Ring of Honor ring. It was only 3 ropes, had the spring in the middle, and the thing was like 10 feet across, Mike. I'm like, the only picture I see of Josh Koscheck, his ears connected to his shoulders with his traps, and they got him as a D1 NCAA champion. I'm in the ring looking across. I'm like, the guy is going to take 1 step and have his hands on me. I have no chance. And so I had this strategy to throw a flying knee, try to catch him with a flying knee. But to do that, to do anything in a high stress situation like that, you have to have the reps. You have to have the hundreds of reps. But when are you practicing flying knees? You're not doing it in sparring. That would be rude to your sparring partner, to say the least. Maybe Conor McGregor does that to his sparring partners. Maybe some of these guys do that nowadays. But I never practiced flying knees on my sparring partners. So I was a little off. I hit him with the thigh. Actually, no, the first round, he got me with the overhand because I was expecting him to just shoot a little bit. And like I said, the ring was so small. He actually rocked me with the overhand. And I tried to get up. Ever since I've had my neck broken, I have adjusted my jiu-jitsu game. I don't sit up around the leg anymore. If you ever watch people playing jiu-jitsu, a big move is to come up on a single leg. You get an underhook, especially wrestlers. You get an underhook at bottom half guard. Imagine this, bottom half guard. You get your underhook, and you come up on a single leg. It's a very popular basic sweep. But you leave yourself open for the Darce choke and an arm-in guillotine. And because my neck is so fucked up, I don't even do that move anymore because even if I don't tap out, I'm going to be crippled for 3 days just because there's so much damage in there already. But Josh Koscheck, I did that to Josh Koscheck from half guard. I tried to come up on all fours because I was frustrated getting grounded and pounded. I came up into on cross. He was on top of me in cross-side. He got me in a guillotine choke, and guy was fucking strong. He lifted me off the floor by my neck. And I go, oh, fuck, I guess I'm going to sleep because I wasn't going to tap out. But I guess either his arms got tired or he figured because I wasn't tapping out, it wasn't on properly. So he let go. Thankfully, I made it to the second round. The second round, I knew he was going to come with that overhand. So I took a half step back. He did the same exact thing, threw the overhand into the double leg. I blasted him with the knee, but he was so fast with his shot. He got right past the tip of my knee, and I hit him with the thigh muscle. I hit him with the knee, but I hit him with the thigh muscle. You see his head in the video come flying up, but he was able to power through, and I got him in a guillotine, but he kept driving forward. There's only 3 ropes, and we go through the ropes, out of the ring, through the Spanish announcer's table.
I think that was Bout Review USA journalist Shu Hirata. I think that's him in the video.
Shu Hirata was scouting me for Japan. They wanted me to fight overseas.
But I think you landed on Shu Hirata's lap, actually. Yeah.
And Shu Hirata, yep. Shu Hirata, we had met through, my mother's a stenographer. You know what that is?
Yes, for court transcripts, yeah.
Yep. And one of the translators that she worked with was a guy named Fernando Avila. He was the Spanish
He was sitting next to Shu, yes.
And yeah, so that's why I say it was the Spanish announcer's table. You know, that's like a pro wrestling thing. You know, they slammed me through the Spanish announcer's table. So as far as I know, me and Josh Koscheck, only people in MMA history to go through the Spanish announcer's table.
Well, how close was that guillotine on Josh?
Probably not. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm not really a good grappler.
Was he just being a dick?
He I gotta say, he probably knew what he was doing, pushing us out of the ring. Because we were on the ropes, and he definitely pushed a little further.
Okay.
And Matt, you watched the video. Matt and the rest of them were pretty. They was yelling at him,
That's funny.
But I think Josh is known for being arrogant.
Oh yeah, for sure. June
Well
7,
accomplished, though.
June 7, 2003, Ring of Combat number 3, Dave Tirelli. You actually fought against him twice, Ring of Combat 4 as well. You won the first one by cut.
Yeah. So Dave Tirelli, he's a judge now in New Jersey.
He got wrecked by Dana White the last time he judged. Yes.
Oh, I think he might be a little punchy, to be honest. But
he's one, just for people at home. He gave the fight to Paulo Costa versus Sean Strickland. So when Dana White had his post-fight meltdown, this is the person they're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, look, Mike, this is another conspiracy of mine, but who knows? Who knows if they're actually judging or if they're being told what to write? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Dave Tirelli, he was at the time the top fighter in that weight class from Tiger Schulman, and people hate on Tiger Schulman for being a chain, but they're not a McDojo. Everybody who fights from Tiger Schulman comes through the whole system of all the other students, so they're tough. And Dave Tirelli, he was fighting MMA underground before MMA was a thing, and he came in juiced to the gills. Especially the second time, he didn't make weight, and I took the fight anyway. But the first fight, I'm going to admit something. I purposely kneed him in the face when they had a rule that you weren't allowed to pull the person down into a clinch knee to the face. He ducked into it as well. So I was pulling him, and he also ducked into it. I kneed him right in the face. It stood him up, and then I came with a cross jab, and the hard jab, because it was coming off the cross, it put his nose across his face, and the bone came out through the skin.
Oh.
And the second fight, he took a rematch.
Well,
and he came in.
Here. There was a little bit of controversy there, and like I from what I understand, there was an altercation after this fight between you two.
Oh, not that I know of. I think the people in the crowd were pissed, especially when I got up on the ring, because Tiger Schulman always brings a huge crowd. So they were booing me, and I did the Hulk Hogan thing.
Okay.
But I don't know that he was pissed. Maybe he thought that I did something wrong by pulling his face down. But I'll tell you what, Mike, he did get his revenge. He came in juiced to the gills. And
this is August 15, 2003. The very next one, Ring of Combat 4, the rematch.
The rematch, he won a decision. He punted me. He punted me in the nose and broke my nose by letting me off the floor. I was coming up, stupid me, in a referee's position. And as I'm coming up, my hands are still on the floor. He throws the punt, the soccer kick. My hands come off the floor at the exact same time. He kicks me across my nose. I don't know what round that was in, but I was gushing blood all over him. I still almost knocked him the fuck out at the end of the fight. I just came in. Ray Longo used to have this drill where he calls it the cross hook series. He says 1, you throw the cross. 2, you throw a cross hook. 3, cross hook, cross. 4, cross hook, so on and so forth, up to 10. Does it at the end of the workout while your arms are gassed, and you just come in and you step into the pocket. I stepped into David Tirelli, and I just started throwing cross hook, and I hit him with the hook, wobbled him, and he grabbed onto me. He was able to hang on till the end of the fight. It was at the very end of the fight. And he didn't finish me, and if we had a rematch, I don't know what would have happened, but he didn't take that rematch. He retired instead.
That was his last fight. Did you guys shake hands afterward?
Oh, I would. I don't remember. Part of the MTBI, I think, is a bit of memory loss. But I don't see why I wouldn't have. I'm kind of a bit of a softie, to be honest. I always tried to not hold any grudges.
Nah, it's nothing personal. It's just a fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Joe Stevenson, me and him were friends in the house. We were friends after the fight. The only guy I would say I wanted to really mess up was Sam Morgan for some reason. I don't know. I think I was jealous because Matt
Okay,
Hughes loved him.
let's talk about Mike Thatcher.
Okay. This is gonna sound weird, but looking back, I feel like he dove into that. I don't know, man. Maybe he was paid off. Maybe he just stinks at grappling. That was my only submission in my whole career. And I watched the fight
Triangle.
recently because I found a VHS tape, and it looks like he just like put himself into the triangle. I didn't land one punch. The whole fight was grappling.
You had pretty good clinch work against him, and that's your lone submission. That's your lone submission.
I had a decent clinch game, but it doesn't really work anymore. These guys are so good at wrestling, you don't even want to clinch. It's really hard to clinch somebody unless they want to clinch fight you back. If you clinch a wrestler, you're going to get taken down. If you want to clinch a striker, maybe you can get some clinching off. But
all right, just so people at home can understand what took place here. Then you fight Josh Koscheck. He goes on to The Ultimate Fighter season 1. You take a Muay Thai bout against Alex Xavier. Then you're scheduled June 5th, 2005 against Derek Riddick. It gets canceled because you tried out for The Ultimate Fighter season 2. What was that process like?
It was a web forum, MMA.TV/TUF, the underground forum.
You still post there?
Yeah, I used to post there. Yeah, for sure. And that was like social media back then. Like there wasn't any Facebook groups or Instagram. So that was when I went online. That's where I went and hung out. I had my own web forum eventually, but I don't know if people do forums anymore. It's like Reddit and social media.
Wow. The reason you and I connected was because Hong Kong Fooey, one of the ace moderators over there, connected both you and I.
Oh, sweet.
So you got to be checking something.
On the underground forum? Okay.
He's still on the underground forum holding it down, man.
Shout out to the UG.
That's my guy, Fooey.
They had a post about it, and it was where to send your video application. So I made like this off the wall. My friend, he was a video editor, made like this off the wall application, and I got Matt Serra in on it to talk me up. I think they were looking for somebody from Matt Serra's camp because it came down to between me and Joe Scarola, who went on a future season and
work out well for him.
Ended up becoming me because Joe had really bad performance anxiety. I did actually get a call to fight in the UFC before that, but I felt like I wasn't ready. It was against Jay Heron.
Oh, geez, that's not easy.
And guess who Jay Heron fought instead of me?
Who's that?
George St. Pierre.
Oh, I tell you, Jay Heron, you know what? That's the name that we got to track down. He'd be a good interview. He'd be a really good interview, actually. So you go to
I
the
thought he would have been a stylistic nightmare for me because he was a good wrestler. That was always my kryptonite. And he had decent striking because he trained at Belmore Kickboxing over here, where who trains at Belmore Kickboxing? Gregor Gillespie, Andre Harrison, who's I think a PFL or a Bellator fighter. Who is that? There's a professional boxer out of there, but yeah, he would have probably beat me at least by decision. So I got the call to interview, and they flew us out. It was me and Tom Muller, who was a black belt under Matt, and Tom actually got the call to be on the show, but he turned it down. He didn't want to become a professional fighter. He was more of like a traditional martial artist, came from a Japanese background, and he might have won, to be honest. He had really good striking and jiu-jitsu. But there was a group of bunch of people, and they had us in a hotel room by ourselves. I'm sitting in there, I'm working out, I'm practicing my speech. I wrote out a speech, what I wanted to say, and I memorized that shit, Mike. I fucking memorized that shit. I was
So when did you
nervous.
know? When did you know, like, I nailed it, I'm on this show?
So I'm sitting in the room. The producers, the assistant producers, come in through the door of the room. They interview me. Dana talks about some moment where I had this. They call them Buddha beads. It's made of a birch wood, and they're supposedly the wood that the Buddha was sitting under, meditating when he reached the enlightenment. So I'm smelling the Buddha beads to relax myself because of the social anxiety. So I go through the interview with the assistant producers. All of a sudden, the side door, you know, a hotel room has the connecting doors, right?
Yes.
The side door opens up and Dana White comes out. He brings me into the next room and there's a round table with all the Spike TV people. So I sit at the foot. At the head is Craig Pelagian, and Dana White sits next to him. Craig Pelagian's the head of Spike TV. And they're asking me all type of questions. And Craig Pelagian goes, "Have you seen the rest of the guys here?" Because we all came in on the same bus to the hotel. He goes, "You've seen the rest of these guys? They're beasts. I mean, Melvin Gillard's already got over 40 fights. You know, Marcus Davis, pro boxer turned bodybuilder. I mean, they're scary to look at. You're like a skinny looking nerd. What are you gonna do?" I said, "Well, the only thing I can promise is that I will fight, and I'll fucking fight as hard as I can." And he goes, "All right, well, I know you got a New York asshole inside of you. What's it gonna take to come out?" I don't remember what I said to that, but I think they were kind of like typecasting. They were trying to find, you know, with these reality shows, they don't script it, but they ask such leading questions and they set up the scenarios. Like they have a general idea of where they want the storyline to go.
Yeah,
So they
pretty good
wanted
formula.
somebody from Matt Serra's camp. They wanted, you know, somebody from Rich Franklin's camp. They wanted somebody from Mark Lehman's camp, Hawaii, you know, something like that. So I think by the time I got to Vegas, it was pretty much a sure thing. They just wanted to make sure I wouldn't, I guess, melt under the pressure.
Okay.
And
Well,
I almost did. I don't know if I ever revealed this on camera, but when Dana White gave us the speech, you know, "Do you want to be a fucking fighter?" speech that he gave in
famous speech.
season 1, he gave
Yeah.
us a similar speech in season 2, and he was so convincing that this is something that you do not even know what you're getting yourself into. And I was anxious, and to be honest, I was scared of the rest of the fighters. And he said, "Now's your chance. Right now, anybody who's having second thoughts, walk out right now, no judgment." And I was like, I was close. I think I was actually scared to leave, and that's why I didn't. But the rest is history, I guess.
Okay.
Not a fun situation, to be honest. Everybody looks at it from the outside, Mike. They go, "Oh, the glory. I want to be a fighter." How many times people come into the gym? "I'm the next champion. I'm gonna train every day." You know, they see the glory. They see the finished product. But the stress, the physical stress, the mental stress, the emotional, you know, toll that it takes to just break yourself on a daily basis, to put yourself away from your family. That was tough too. 6 weeks, no contact. I don't know what it is now, but we had no contact for 6 weeks. Even if you lost, you had to go to the loser house. Couldn't get your phone back. And that, you know, looking back, is only 6 weeks, but that wasn't fun.
No, I can imagine, you know, especially if you got loved ones at home. So you go to the Ultimate Fighter house, and the team's pick. You got Matt Hughes. And the order he picked was Joe Stevenson, Josh Berkman, Sam Morgan, and then he picked you last.
Okay, that was it for. Okay.
For you guys. Yeah, for your weight
All right.
class.
Right.
You're like the kind of kid at gym class that's getting picked last.
Yeah.
Does it eat at you?
Was I the last pick overall of the welterweights?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So who was the 7th pick? Was that Anthony Torres?
I think
Yeah.
he was picked. Yeah, he was definitely picked before you. Yes.
Okay, so he had bad striking, and I guess I didn't have bad grappling. I tapped out Josh Berkman in the tryouts, but he claimed it was because my metal cup was in his face. He said he tapped out. It was a triangle choke. He said he tapped out because I was pulling his face into my metal cup. But Joe Stevenson used to tap me out at least once a day. Sam Morgan had this move where he would get you in guard, and he would wrap his hands around his own legs. That's where he got the nickname Sammy the Squeeze. He would just fucking crush your ribs. Me and him had some battles in sparring though. And the 2nd pick was Josh Berkman. Yeah. What happened with Josh Berkman? He lost
Broke his arm
decision.
after he
He
beat
broke his...
no against Gillard.
Okay.
And then Jason
Thank God I didn't have
Von
to fight
Flue.
that guy.
And then
And
Jason
Von Flue
Von
came in
Flue.
to replace him. Right.
That's correct.
Yo, Rob McDonald, he's doing well on Instagram. I saw him. He's still a physical specimen.
Just so everybody knows, on the other side, Brad Imes was the last heavyweight picked.
Okay.
So
Another
you're the
finalist.
last welterweight. He's the last heavyweight. Both of you guys wound up in the finals. Which is
Nice.
pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Matt
Pretty
Hughes
cool.
had to stop me because he trained us every day. A little bit of overtraining. I mean, that was the strategy. You better be overtrained than undertrained. So we trained 6 days a week, 2 times a day. The only day off we had was Sunday, but he had an active recovery, so he'd take us to the YMCA and we'd swim. So he caught me in the hallway of the YMCA doing my own like weird workout. I used to do like push-ups on my knuckles. I would do shadow boxing and sprawling, body weight squats. And he came in and he had to talk to me. He says, "Oh, what are you doing? You're supposed to be resting." And I was like, "Listen, man, I know I'm the underdog here. I just want to make sure all my bases are covered." It didn't really eat at me.
A lot of people were turned off to Matt by his personality. Did you fall into that category?
I tell you what, it's hard to talk bad about Matt because he's messed up now. He's got that brain injury himself, so I don't really want to talk shit about him. I'll give you, for instance, an example, and I'm not going to say I'm saying this about my dad, but I'm really talking about Matt Hughes. But my dad, he's a Catholic, but he's a jerk. He doesn't act very Christian to me and other people, but he's hardcore Catholic and he'll fucking preach to you till the cows come home. Matt took a liking to Sammy because they used to read the Bible together. The thing I'm mad about Matt.
Hold up, they're from the same general area and would see each other quite often. So, like, Sammy's from the Minneapolis area, Matt's from Iowa. Like at regional and local shows, they probably saw each other a few dozen times prior to going to the Ultimate Fighter. So
right on. Yeah, I had a thing against Sammy. I think I don't know. It was probably the situation that we always knew like we might have eventually had to fight each other. So I don't know. There was just always a tension between us.
Okay.
But the thing with Matt was he always used to say, "I'll never make you guys do something that I wouldn't do myself." So his workouts were brutal, long, and then the conditioning after, all the weight training, the running, the pull-ups, the sit-ups. It was tough. That was some of the best training of my entire life. I'll never regret growing as a martial artist during that time, especially with the assistant trainers, Mark Lehman, awesome. Peter Welch, awesome, and Ganyao Fairtex, all three of them, incredible trainers. I still do some of the things that they taught me to this day. But Matt had one thing. He said he wouldn't make us do something that he wouldn't do himself. There was one thing that he did to me that he would not do himself. And that is when we did ground and pound, I was wearing the MMA gloves in the guard. He was on top of me in my guard with boxing gloves. And that motherfucker, at one point, the most dominant welterweight of all time, with a specialty of ground and pound, mind you, gave me a concussion in training by grounding and pounding me. And people rag on Sammy Morgan saying I made him cry. That's a symptom of concussion. And I cried because of what Matt Hughes did to me that day. But we never sparred in a stand-up. Matt Hughes never sparred with me stand-up. And he also tapped out to Mark Lehman from a knee bar and claimed that if it was MMA, it wouldn't have worked in MMA because he would have grounded and pounded him. And don't say that. Just take your L. He got you in a jiu-jitsu match. No, who cares? You don't have to say, oh, yeah, that wouldn't. That's like these guys saying, oh, that won't work in the street. Come on, bro. No offense,
Right.
Matt. I would like to fight him in a sparring match, though. No head contact.
Anthony Torres was your first fight on The Ultimate Fighter, season 2. He's 4-0 out of Hawaii. Generally speaking, at this time, subtract BJ Penn from the Hawaiian scene. All those guys got monster stand-up, very limited ground.
I think he's the opposite.
Yeah. Who? You talking about Anthony Torres?
Yeah. He was a grappler.
He was, but like if you look, I can only talk this. I've watched Rumble on the Rock. I've watched all this. Anytime there's a Hawaiian fighter, their stand-up is like next level, fastball after fastball. But then when they get taken down, they're a little bit limited.
I think it was the opposite with him, to be honest. I think he was actually a jiu-jitsu black belt. He got me in a rear naked choke. Thankfully, I survived. And yeah, I pretty much beat his ass because he got tired.
Yeah, you won by decision. And then Jason Von Flue comes to the house, and he's really made to feel like he doesn't belong there.
What a guy. I really liked him. We talked about anime and comic books together. The producers had a talk with us. They brought everybody in. They go, listen, all you do is eat, sleep, and train. Luke's playing solitaire all day long with the cards. This is not good TV. What can we do to inject some excitement? Can we stock the bar? They stocked the bar. They asked Jason Von Flue. He was the bartender. Completely stocked the bar. I think one guy had a beer. 2 guys had a beer or something. Everybody was serious. Everybody wanted to do well. Back then, I would say being the second season, people seeing what had happened in the first season, everybody was like real serious about performing. But Von Flue, out of Chuck Liddell's camp, really good
the pit.
striking and grappling. No, he was a complete fighter. He had that Von Flue choke, and he got me in our fight. And that thing goes on so quick. Oh my God. I freaked out when he got that on me. And even though it was on for like a split second, I still got woozy. He was the specialist. He would set it up very good. But he had like so much scar tissue. We called it a button. All you had to do was press the button. He would just bleed. And I hit him with an elbow in that fight. He was gushing, and I felt bad. So I rode with him in the ambulance. I think I had like 1 stitch on the inside of my lip, which fell out later that night when I was eating. And he goes, we're in the ambulance. He's like, oh, he's feeling his head. He's got fucking a headache. He goes, Luke, you're an asshole. Like, sorry, bro. He's
Were you
doing well
guys,
though. He's got his own gym. He's married to a young lady. He's got a kid. He's a black belt now.
were you
Bless him.
guys told to kind of make him feel uncomfortable in the house, or was that something that was organic?
Definitely organic. I don't know what you're talking about on that. I never had any problems with him. I think I hung out with him and Joe Stevenson the most out of anybody. Like you're sitting around, it's like nothing to do, just bullshit. Hours all day.
Yeah, he was.
They woke us up at like 5, 6 to do our first morning because both teams had to work out in the morning. So it was like one team had the early session. I think we had to be up at 6 or 7 or something. You get home 3 hours later. How long does it take to eat? And your next session isn't until the afternoon. You're sitting there. You can take an hour nap. It's like nothing to do. You can go in the pool. So you get to know people. And me, Joe, and Joe. I would say Joe and Jason were the two people that I got along with the best.
Yeah, he
I
and Matt
never
Hughes.
tried to make him feel uncomfortable. Sorry.
Yeah, I know he and Matt Hughes. Like he was kind of emotional. A couple times, during the private sessions where you're recording. So Sam Morgan's your second fight. Obviously, somebody that Matt Hughes kind of gave a little favoritism to. He was
Okay.
at Team Bison, 15-6, and you got to look at like that 15-6 record. He knocks out Dwayne Ludwig, who's obviously a stand-up specialist, and he's got a submission win over Aaron Riley, who Aaron Riley, in my opinion, is incredibly underappreciated.
Okay. He had probably a lot of fights, huh?
So Morgan's 15-6, and you knock him out in the second round with a knee.
He dropped me in the first round, I think.
Yeah.
They didn't show really the good angle of the knee, I think. No, that's what it was. Okay, so Ganya Fairtex. Huge for a tie. They don't make him that big. I think he fought at 185. He was like 6'4". But you know how the ties train, it's like a lot of repetition of the techniques, and at the end of most of the workouts, he would have us doing this station training on the heavy bags. So one heavy bag was knees, one heavy bag was front kicks, one heavy bag was round kicks, one heavy bag was elbows. The bags that they had was kind of like canvas, and my elbows were bleeding. But I did so many elbows, and he was just yelling in the fight, elbow, elbow. It was like, that's all he wanted was elbows. I know why, because they're so devastating. But I hit Sammy Morgan with an elbow from the clinch. You have to look at the video. That left elbow made him drop down. Then I hit him with the knee. He dropped down to the floor, and they cut the video. You don't see me coming down with a hammer fist because it's not really a good look hitting an unconscious opponent. You can't really avoid it on the pay-per-view, but they really didn't show a good angle of it on the cable TV. But he dropped me with a right hand in the first round as I was throwing a left kick. My right leg collapsed, and I think I shot in for a clinch after that. And Mike Whitehead was teasing me. He goes, "Oh, I saw you shooting for shoelaces." Yeah.
So when Jason Von Flue fought, was it George? Come on, Gurgel. Matt didn't even bother to corner him. Went and played cards instead. I think that's the incident I was referring to. And keep in mind, Matt's working out with those guys as well. Like Rich Franklin and Matt Hughes and T. Militich and Gurgel, those guys were all close. Like the only one that was kind of excluded from like the MFS and that Cincinnati connection was Matt Brown, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. They always kind of we discussed that in our interview with him.
Okay. I like Matt Brown as a fighter.
Yeah, 100%. And sober.
Incredible.
Sober guy.
Big ups. Shout out Matt Brown.
So the Ultimate Fighter, you did a wall sit challenge.
Yep.
Where the coaches had to like tell you, hey, dude, it's over. You won.
Yeah.
Is it more mental, or is that one of your exercises, your non-traditional exercises that you referred to earlier?
Yes. So my first martial art was Kung Fu. My mom made me sit down and watch Enter the Dragon when I was 15 because I was having behavior problems. She thought that it would motivate me, the focus, the discipline. I said, oh, all right. First, I didn't want to watch it. I was like, what is this? It's an old movie, boring. I was like, oh, dang, this is pretty dope. What's that? Kung Fu? Bruce Lee did Kung Fu, right? Well, he kind of did. So I looked it up. I think it was the Yellow Pages back then. Didn't even have internet. 1995. I found Kung Fu. So I started training Kung Fu. I got up to brown belt. Like, to get black belt, I had to do an hour horse stance. I was training to get my black belt. I had to practice an hour horse stance. So I was working my way up to it. There's a movie by Bruce Lee. It's called Return of the Dragon. I'm sorry, Chinese Connection. The one that Jet Li remade, where he's Chinese fighting against the Japanese. At the end of that movie, Bruce Lee comes flying through the window and just... it was so motivating that I would set the movie up so that the last minute or the last 5 minutes of my horse stance, where my legs are just freaking shaking, burning, and I'm crying and I want to stop, that part comes on, the last part where I'm just like about to quit, and it would just motivate me. So my legs, dude, 5 minutes on a wall sit, you got the wall to lean up against. The horse stance is the same position with no wall. Your butt has to be parallel to your knees. And I could do that for an hour. 5 minutes is nothing on a wall stand. However, the reason why it was so tough for everybody else is because that's the end of the tryout. That's after the striking portion. That's after the grappling portion. After the weightlifting, the pull-ups, the body weight training, that brutal treadmill interval. They didn't show that. I only made it up to 9 miles an hour. 5 minutes at 5 miles an hour. 5 minutes at 6 miles an hour. 5 minutes at 7. 5 minutes at 8. 5 minutes at 9. That's when I died. 5 minutes at 10. That's where Diego Sanchez and Chris Lieben were the only ones who made it. Nobody made it in my season.
Wow.
They didn't show me on the bench press. They did not show that because that would not a good look. Me barely being able to push the bar up.
Yeah.
But like I said, they got a general idea of the storyline. So they wanted, by the time you see the show, all that's already come and gone. We're waiting. The way they filmed it was they recorded the show and they edited it for the finale, which would be live. But by the time they edited it, they knew that I was going to be in the finals. So, they selected the segments that would make me look good. They wanted to bill me as the next Diego, the weirdo who could actually fight.
So by the time you recorded and the Ultimate Fighter finale, Tough 2 finale, November 5th, 2005, how much time in between was that?
Good question. I think we wrapped in June or July. I'm going to say we started in June.
Right. So
it was a couple of months.
Yeah, those first couple seasons were brutal for the people that were on the TV show because the finale was so far in between and you couldn't fight. You couldn't tell anybody. Right. And they didn't give you enough money to survive in order to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So then, like now you got about 4 months, you can't do anything to apply your craft, but you got to pay your bills and we're not going to help you.
What was I doing then? I think I was living with my girlfriend who would later become my wife. But yeah, everybody was asking, especially once the show started airing and it got later in the season. I tried to keep a secret. And Ray knew, Matt knew, that Dana told them. But I was training for the finale, and they knew I was going to fight Joe Stevenson, and I told them, he would submit me almost every lesson, every class. One time he got me in a straight ankle lock, and the old technique, ever since social media, the jiu-jitsu game has jumped by leaps and bounds. They call it 1995 jiu-jitsu, like Royce Gracie jiu-jitsu. He wouldn't even be a contender in a purple belt match these days with his black belt level. But the old technique to defend against a straight ankle lock is to put on the boot. You kick your foot deeper in so that now it's no longer on your foot, but it's on your shin. I still had to tap out against Joe Stevens because he was about to snap my shin bone. But Matt knew if I was going to survive, he knew exactly how to train me. And God bless him. Every lesson started with me having my back taken and practicing, and then sparring, starting from the worst possible situation. My mount escape, my back escape is the best part of my game now because of that. I probably did 1,000 times practicing how to get up from being mounted and practicing how to get somebody off your back.
Let me make this come full circle. So essentially, you pretended to be the opponent for Matt time and time again in order to help prepare him, and now he returns the favor to you.
Oh yeah, he put in a lot of time with me personally.
Wow,
private lessons, and also, a lot of times it was him putting one of his top students with me, Frankie Patches, Charlie, both black belts now. Frankie Patches was on my back most of the time, and Charlie was the guy that I practiced the Uchimata thousands of times. That I was getting ready to, when I was getting ready against, I believe it was my final match, Tandem Liguori. There's certain moves that are better suited for different body types.
Okay.
So Matt made me rep the Uchimata about probably 50 times a half an hour each time. So that's one of my best moves, that and the mount escape.
Did you ever work out with John Danaher?
I took a seminar with John Danaher at Ray Longo's gym back when they used to call him New Zealand John. And I had no idea who he was, but that was probably one of my first jiu-jitsu lessons, to be honest. And I wrote down the moves that he showed. I think it was 3 moves. I still got it somewhere in my papers. The descriptions and the video and the pictures. I also took 1 or 2 classes with him in New York City in the famed Blue Basement. I think he had like a 6:30 a.m. class, and I went there a couple of times. I had to stop going though because it was so early, and I wasn't a student of Henzo's. I probably could have smooth talked my way into going there, but it was just kind of like a little bit of friction because I wasn't paying.
Okay. Matt didn't vouch for you?
He did. That's what got me in there, and I probably could have kept going, but no, I only had 12 fights in the UFC, man. So we're talking about 3 years total.
6 and 6, 6 fights out, 6 fights in. Yeah. What about Anthony Ladonna?
Anthony Ladonna, another major sparring partner of mine. If you can see, I have a broken hand bone here. We both threw a cross at the same time, and our fists actually collided. I wasn't expecting it, so my hand was kind of loose. He also dislocated my knee on a takedown. He fought. Who did he fight? Eddie Alvarez? I'm not sure. He came at me on social media because him and Frankie Patches were mad at me because I probably was out of line. I said something about Matt because somebody posted a video of Matt criticizing one of the fighters, and I was like, this is kind of like the same thing that he was yelling at Mark Lehman about criticizing a fighter for acting a certain way. It's like,
Hoist. Yeah, he
but
was
you're
kind of
not in their
criticizing
shoes,
Hoist.
and it's almost like with Italians, it's like you better off just not saying anything. So Anthony hates me, Frankie hates me. I think Matt hates me now.
About
But
Frankie Edgar? You talking about Frankie Edgar?
Frankie Patches. His name is
Patches.
Frankie.
Oh.
I forgot his last name. He opened up a Serra Jiu-Jitsu in one of the Carolinas.
What about Chris Liguori, another proud Italian?
Chris Liguori, I never trained with him, never sparred with him, never fought him. Where did he make it to? Bellator?
No, I mean, I remember him on the Euphoria cards, the MFC Euphoria cards in
right,
Atlantic
MFC.
City. Yeah, I used to work there around that time.
Cool. Who owned that? Was that Russian?
It was all, dude. It was Russian. It was crazy. It was. I remember like
Bodog, right?
It became Bodog. So one of my experiences was having to. I was on the police department at the time, having to escort some Russian guy with cash so he could go to like the ticket booth and just buy. I need 2 tickets. I need 3 tickets. I need 4 tickets. And like they would have this huge gate, but not a lot of people there.
Oh,
so
wow.
like I'd be like, oh. I would kind of like, well, he's got no more money and he's, got an armful of tickets. So
somebody's got money.
It's the laundry. I think is what he was doing in that instance.
I wasn't gonna say it, but yeah.
Yeah. What about your former boxing coach, Mark Wizbicki?
Mark Wizbicki, rest in peace. He gave me this cauliflower ear with a pad, with a hand pad. Back in the day, like I was saying before, this is kind of like the dark days. A lot of people have jumped on board the MMA bandwagon, the combat sports bandwagon. You got a million different companies with new technology and air pockets in the pads and individual fingers. Back then you had like these Everlast pads that was just like a flat, hard surface. And some of them had like a piece of plastic in it. And Mark Wizbicki, I think he was 6'6" or 6'5", 2-time Golden Glove champion. Big, strong Polish guy, and great coach. Great, simple, but perfect technique. Like, if you watch professional boxing, if you watch professional fighting, you never see anybody ever doing these combos that you see them doing on the pads. They're doing 1, 2, slip, 1, 2, 3, weave, 1, 2, 3, ba 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 ba. It's like 20 different things. It looks like the pad holder is doing more than the fighter. You know what I'm talking about? They're spinning around, putting the pad behind their back. Nobody ever does that in a fight. You see the basic stuff.
Bro, you watch early Johnny Hendricks like pad videos. The pad holder is doing much more work, like 10 times more work than Johnny Hendricks. All Johnny Hendricks is doing is putting his fist out, letting the guy hit it 5 times, putting his other fist out. Dude, don't even get me started on that shit, man. Okay. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, but Mark Wizbicki, he had a very simple game, but it was flawless. He had the double jab,
pure technique,
he had the cross hook, the double jab and the cross hook, and he was a heavyweight. So those guys, they don't really do a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't have a lot of speed and a lot of volume. It's like they only need one punch. So I took his approach, and he was a great guy to have in the corner because he was so big and loud. But I would say the one bad thing about him coaching is that you never had a chill sparring session. It always turned into a gym war because he would just hype each guy up. He turned it into a fight to the death every time, just by yelling. But I think I think I wouldn't be, where I was. And he really cared. Like, he didn't get paid. Mark Wizbicki, we called him Wiz. He didn't get paid. Yeah, Ray probably threw him some bones for working the events and stuff. But he'd come in, he'd smell like beer. He'd come in and hold the pads or tell you what to do, run a workout. And another guy was Alex Cece. So Mark would be yelling, Alex would be holding the pads. And it really was for the love. Like, as an ex-fighter, to give what you have as a skill that you built with your blood, sweat, and tears to try to impart that into the next generation. That's really what Mark did and what Ray does. And that's why everybody loves Ray. And I do want to go back to see Ray and Matt because it was the family. They were Matt more so like an older brother, but Ray kind of like a father figure.
I respect those guys.
I'm a little embarrassed, about what happened to me as far as just like kind of becoming a failure.
I think you went off the grid a little bit.
To accomplish something,
Hold up.
And I put all my eggs in one basket with Master Luki's League of Champions, and it just hasn't come to anything yet. And I don't know if I'm just trying to like hold on to sand that's just falling out of my fingers, or if one day I still might make it happen. Okay. But I do want to go see them and thank them, from the bottom of my heart.
Man, you should. I mean, you were good to him. He was good to you. You guys shared an incredible moment in your life, as well as the history of the UFC. I mean, the Ultimate Fighter Season 2, the ratings they got there were unbelievable. And I mean, you provided lots of content in that house.
Yeah, Ray, after that show, he upgraded his gym. So I'm thankful that I'm still on the fighters wall. If you look at Ray's gym, he's got all his UFC fighters. I'm the first one because Matt moved up to the champions. He's got like 2 layers. All the UFC fighters, me, Al, Drago, Truck, Costas, and then the layer above that is Matt, Weidman, Aljamain. Marab's up there somewhere.
That's pretty cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm still there.
All right. So you talked to us about Jason Von Flue. Here's the interesting thing about that fight. It takes place April 6, 2006. That's when you fight Von Flue. Your next fight's June 28th, 2006. That's a pretty fast turnaround.
Okay.
And was there any issues with Joe Silva? What was your relationship like with him?
Joe Silva, we just talked email, to be honest. I would send him an email.
Did you request a fast turnaround?
I don't remember, to be honest. I lost my access to that. It was my old Yahoo account. So I couldn't even go back and find those emails. But I did email somebody about 10 years after I left UFC. I was desperate. I was homeless. I was training, but not really working. And I was like, man, maybe I could just do 1 or 2 more fights and use the money to fund my League of Champions. And so I messaged not Joe Silva. Maybe I did. I messaged somebody. I ended up connecting with the new matchmaker.
Sean Shelby?
I think so.
Or Mick Maynard.
I messaged the first guy and he said, what weight are you going to fight at? And I said 155 because I was always undersized at 170. I never had to cut weight. So I was like, damn, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to have to cut to the weight I should have fought at. So he goes, all right, this is the matchmaker for 155. So I messaged that guy. He goes, well, there's 100 guys on the roster already. And there's a list a mile long of guys waiting to come in. And the top guys on that list are the champions of their local event. So you have to work your way up again. And I was like, damn. I'm gonna come up against these young, hungry lions. My body's already slowing down, and I probably am lucky that I didn't follow through with that, because I kind of got out like Khabib at a golden moment where, I did lose my last 2 fights, but I didn't get injured. I didn't get knocked out or physically damaged. Although my arm popped a couple of times against the Barn Cat. But I decided to let it break. Thankfully, he didn't snap it in half.
So you drop a fight against Goulet, Jonathan Goulet, who is a big 170. You're a small 170.
Yeah.
Josh Haynes, you knock him out. He's also dropping from 85, his previous weight class, to fighting you, once again, small 170. You knock him out. Edilberto de Oliveira, legend out of Brazil. You stop. You knock him out. And your last fight is, I'm sorry, one of your last 2 fights, Luigi Fioravante.
Right.
Out of American Top Team. Luigi in law enforcement now.
Okay. How's he doing? I thought I saw something where he, I don't know, like punch you or something. I don't know.
No, he's
not
good. Orlando
he's good?
Cop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, he gave us an interview while he was at work. Like he's literally in his police car, in his uniform, doing an interview with us. Yeah.
My last fight, if I took it, would have been against
Camden
Steve Bruno, who was I was scheduled to fight Steve Bruno, who was a kind of like a mini Fioravante. But that's when I
he's also another American Top Team guy, former Lions Den.
Oh, wow.
And then he went to American Top Team. I think that would have been a really good fight for you.
Nah, he would have been tough.
I like the matchup.
Hey, anything can happen in a fight.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, Bruno was one of those guys that was kind of catered to. He was kind of given the red carpet treatment because everyone thought he was going to be a world champion. Really? Fantastic showing at the highest levels of fighting. Okay. But turned us down for an interview, I might add.
I just thought he was so well-rounded, and he tore his pec. And I was like, the only people who tear their pecs is because their muscles get too strong too fast, if you know what I mean. Their muscles get too strong too fast, if you know what I mean.
No, go ahead, continue. He said no
because
to an
the
interview with
muscles
us.
get too strong too fast, and the tendons don't get as strong.
What would cause that?
Yeah, it's like a certain type of enhancement of their performance.
Could you get it, let's say, like in the country of Mexico, or would it be here?
I wouldn't know. I actually had 2 instances where I was offered to take illegal substances, and I turned them down. Number 1 was a lidocaine patch, which I asked the doctor, I said, am I going to test positive for this? I had like some injury or something. She's like, oh, put this lidocaine patch on. I'm like, what even is this? Is this like a narcotic? Is it a steroid? I turned that down. The other one was from a shaman who I trained with, kind of like it was Diego Sanchez's famous Josh trainer.
Joshua Fabia.
Kind of like that, but not as weird. This guy was actually a level 4 Czech practitioner, which is really legit. Okay. But he also did shaman training in South America. And I told him I was doing high altitude training in Utah with Jeremy Horn, which I did before 2 of my fights or 3 of my fights.
Legend.
Oh, one of the best things I ever did was train with him. He's an incredible fighter and coach and person. Really, really great guy. I trained and I stayed with Billy Rush, rest in peace. I stayed in his room and spent like 2 weeks before my fights, and it helped.
So what did you refuse from the shaman? Was it like psychedelics?
Coca leaf tea.
They say that in that form, it doesn't get you high, and there's some medicinal.
Oh yeah,
I don't something.
yeah.
I wouldn't know. I've never tried.
Yeah, they
cocaine,
do it in
nor
South
would I.
America, in the high altitudes of the Andes in South America. They chew it because it helps to stimulate. That's why he was going to give it to me to stimulate red blood cell production, because I was going to Utah for the high altitude training. I didn't end up doing that because I told him I don't want to test positive. But I tell you, the high altitude training is legit, and Jason Von Flue will attest to that, because me and him, we sparred together a bunch of times on the show, and we were even. We went back and forth. He was a little bit better grappling. I was a little bit better striking, but we had some really back and forth battles. But in our fight, I pulled ahead, and it was because of that. And he knew it, and he said something to me after the fight, because I did not get tired during that fight, and I only started getting stronger, and he started to wilt. So that high altitude is legit.
Yeah, especially Salt Lake City is one of the most gorgeous places on the entire world. It's like everything works. The people there are aggressively nice. I was there for 90 minutes, and I called my wife, and I'm like, man, this is a place I'd like to move to.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it. So, any regrets?
Okay. The first regret just coming to my mind. Ultimate Fighter Season 2 finale at the Hard Rock, I believe. Was it the Hard Rock? I think it was not the Hard Rock. It was the weigh-ins. It wasn't ceremonial weigh-ins. They just had the regular weigh-ins. I walk up to the entrance, and there's a group of 5 Las Vegas Barbie dolls. And they were there for the UFC. They were there to meet fighters, whatever. They all turned, they looked at me, they were waiting for me to say something, and I chickened out, Mike. And I walked right by them, and I went to the weigh-ins. That's my one regret from that.
Okay, wait, hold up. I will
Groupies.
say, and I'm okay with that. I'm from the south side of Chicago, and there was this old black disciple, old school guy, did a shitload of time in jail, but he was kind of like somebody I admired in terms of like his advice. And he would always say in regards to women, his biggest regret was that he slept with one less than he should have. Just saying, putting it out there. That's not my regret. It sounds like you two may have that in common. But go ahead. I apologize. Your second.
Yeah. Okay. Another regret is all the fallout after I left. I just last 10, 15 years is, I wouldn't say it's been fun, Mike. Not really. You never know. I'm 44 this year. I'll be 45 next year. You never know, like, when it could be the last time that you see somebody. Whether they pass, I might get hit by a bus, or they might move away, or you just might drift apart and forget about each other. So, I do regret letting those relationships kind of dissolve. And with my ex-wife and what happened with my kids, I try not to have regrets. I always try, because I have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. So I always try to reframe negative experiences and look forward rather than dwell on the past. So, like you said before, I really should, and I will eventually one day go back and reconnect with the old team. Maybe start wrestling sooner. another one against Jonathan Goulet. I almost got him in a rear naked choke, but I did the 1995 jiu-jitsu submission, which is locking it up like this instead of going to the palm-to-palm sleeper hold. But I tell you, some of these fights, if I won, for example, if I beat Joe Stevenson, look what happened to him in his next fight. He fought the dentist. He ended up fighting BJ Penn. Joe Stevenson got the worst crimson mask in MMA against BJ Penn. His whole face covered in blood. Not the worst injuries. Like, he wasn't like all busted up, but his whole face covered in blood. What I was saying before about Jay Heron. He fought, I turned that fight down. He ended up fighting GSP. He got obliterated. I mean, GSP almost killed that man. You know, I guess I'm kind of lucky. I never got seriously, knocked out, seriously injured. All my brain injury was mild. It still wrecked my life, but I'm lucky that I'm not like Gary Goodrich, So I wouldn't say that I have a lot of regrets, but that could be also because I try not to think about it. And I'm always doing what I can to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Luke? I think the only one holding you back from stepping inside that gym is yourself. If you walk in that gym, if you don't think Matt Serra is happy to see you and greeting you with a hug, you're wrong. I guarantee he would. You guys, hey, did you have some bad moments at the end? Yeah. So what? I mean, how can you be friends with somebody if you've never had a bad moment with them? It's part of the game.
Thank you, Mike.
it's the truth. It's the truth. What was it like April 18th, 2008, UFC 87, watching Matt Serra beat GSP for the world title?
Nice. That's a good one. I've told this story before. I'll tell it again. So that was you're thinking of UFC 69. Matt Serra GSP 1. So that was against Josh Haynes. And I was scared of Josh Haynes too, to be honest, because he was coming out of Team Quest, reputable gym, fucking champions. And he was a bullshit artist, but he claimed he was training eight hours a day. I was like, holy shit. I'm only training like 4 or 5 hours a day. And then I take days off because sometimes I'm too sore to train. I'm a natural athlete. I don't do any performance enhancing drugs. So after like 2-3 days training balls to the wall, I need a couple of days off. My body just is done. This guy's training 8 hours a day every day. I was like, oh shit. So anyway, my striking was on point that match, and he played the striking game with me. He didn't go for any takedowns. And so I hit him with a cross hook, and the hook came across his chin and wobbled him. Now, sometimes you see it. Guys, they get overzealous when they wobble somebody and they rush in and they just start
Mauling. Yeah.
Bulk. They go for bulk, quantity instead of quality. I poised myself and I measured myself, and then I later on got the actual finishing punch. So I'm like, oh yeah. Backstage, no other knockouts that night. Drago went the distance. He had a fucking tough fight against that dude who arm triangled everybody from Brazil. His forehead was completely like purple with all the punches and elbows. God bless him, Drago. He took some damage in his career. But no other knockouts that night. So I'm like, oh yeah. 50 G's coming my way. Only knockout of the night. They were given one for the submission of the night, one for the knockout of the night, and two for the performance for the fight of the night. So here comes Matt warming up. He goes, hey, you know what I liked, Luke? I liked how when you rocked him, you didn't rush in and you took your time. I go, you know what, Matt? I give you my blessing. I'm the only knockout tonight. I'm giving you my blessing. Go out there and fucking knock this guy out. And guess what? Matt Serra wobbled GSP once. He didn't rush in. He poised himself, and then he got him for good later on that fight. And he took my bonus. And he used it to open up his second gym.
Oh,
But I'm taking credit for that. I'm a big part of the reason why Matt Serra won his championship, because when he first got into the UFC, I was his sparring partner, and he refined his craft on my noggin. I received at least 2 of those overhand rights, and I encouraged him on that night and gave him the guidance that ultimately was a piece of his success.
well,
So,
you're in the locker room. Biggest night of any athlete's career is a world championship. And it had to have been surreal celebrating with him that night.
yeah. Let's see. Where did I celebrate with him? Because I was celebrating too. So we hung out a little bit. I don't know if Matt wants me to tell this, but we used to smoke weed together after the gym.
He is very open about his
Okay.
weed use. Yeah, I mean, very, very open,
okay.
actually. Yeah.
All right. So he used to actually live in the basement of his first gym, and after classes we'd go down into his room, spark up, play Halo. Back then it was split screen because there wasn't any online. And then as he moved up in the world, he got his own apartment. We would do it there. And then eventually a couple of my friends from my hometown, one of them moved to a really, really rich area. And we brought 3 Xboxes and 3 TVs to this kid's house where he had 1 TV and 1 Xbox, and we had a 16-man LAN party of Halo, and that was kind of like one of the golden moments of our lives. A LAN party, baked Halo LAN party. But
was this
we
your
didn't
crowning?
really hang out too much like outside of that.
Was that your crowning moment that night in regards to Halo?
That it's fun because we were good against each other, but then I remember like one time I thought, oh yeah, we're good against each other, so I go to like a Halo tournament and then like lose in 3 seconds to some teenager. But my crowning moment probably was that night, as far as my MMA career, or maybe against Edilberto Procota,
Oh, yeah, that was
because
fantastic.
because he was looking, because I ducked my head down towards his front legs and I came over the top, so he didn't even see the punch. He turns, he thought Herb Dean punched him. He looked at Herb Dean. He's like, "What the fuck, bro?
What are you doing?" Good shit. Lou Cummo.
Yeah, you spill blood with these guys, and then become a piece of you, you know. So I'm gonna take your advice, Mike. I'm gonna go back at some point.
It's all in your head, bro. You walk back in there, I guarantee it's open arms. How are you, dude? I've watched enough of Matt's interviews and his show. I don't think there's a more chill guy, you know, from the East Coast that you're going to find than Matt Serra. Like he's, you know, very talkative. And either way, brother, you're an absolute legend, pioneer of the sport, one of the, you know, the bricklayers of what we have today. And I appreciate your time.
Same. Thank you for having me. Anybody wants to connect with me, you know, my website now is masterluki.com. So I even got my cell phone number up there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's
call, text, email,
Fooey.
whatever you want. I'm available.
Hey, Hong Kong Fooey, special shout out to you. Thanks for hooking us up, Master Lukey. You are the man, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Bye, everybody.
Care. Tyson Green.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell I've been on the road for work for like
not at all.
BKFC? You guys speaking to the mic. BKFC as well as do a little sales in Ohio, which finally came to a head. It came to an end today, actually. Holy dude, I'm not getting any sleep whatsoever. So the one fight of his that I didn't watch was actually that tough fight.
Oh wow.
Just trying to bullshit my way through, which you've been on the ass on that. So Tyson Green, can we agree that anybody listening up until this point should like, share, and subscribe? Can we agree on that, Tyson?
Absolutely. Like, share, subscribe, take the time to do it. We're happy to be a part of it.
Yeah. Apple, do you guys got an Apple account? Let's just say you got like one of these newfangled devices. It's called an iPhone. There's actually an icon on it. It says podcast underneath it. If you were to write like a little bit of a review, they would recommend this podcast to other people that like MMA. I mean, this is only like the 150th episode. I've asked this. We usually get about 2,000 downloads per episode. And I've only got 75 reviews. So like 2,000 people listen, but only 75 actually left reviews or even rated us.
The numbers don't lie, Mike.
No, which is weird. I mean, it's like I'm not trying to talk down to my audience. I'm going to switch formats to like murder mystery. There's that case in Boston. I could do that all day long, or I could do this. I just need some ratings. Tyson, over your right-hand shoulder, we're not going to say what it is that's on your wall. Don't make Tyson use that. We need ratings. So, what'd you think, dude?
I liked it. I think you gave him some really solid advice as far as your recommendation to go see Matt. I think that's going to be a real touchy thing for him. I think that was very worthwhile advice.
Yeah. And, like his dude, believe it or not, I think I'm meet in the middle with a mushroom sponsor, an actual mushroom sponsor that has somehow found a legal gray area to get around all of the laws within the intercontinental United States and can ship mushrooms to you.
That's amazing. It's come this far. There's a lot of benefits. I've read a lot about it. So that's definitely something I know I'd be interested in.
Well, I can tell you I'm sober. Don't drink. Don't use drugs. I have not had a sip of alcohol since I was 18 years old. I waited till I was 25 years sober before I started really kind of understanding the research. I knew it before, but I wanted to at least hit that benchmark before, people at AA meetings. I haven't gone to, I hardly go, but before anybody in that meeting can point fingers at me. So I don't talk about my sobriety other than I do not drink. I've never really smoked weed my entire life. And I do like to microdose. About every 10 days, I take a small little micro and it carries me. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing for me. I don't know about you, but it's good for me.
Absolutely, man. I see exactly where the benefits come from.
So T, I appreciate you. This guy does a lot of heavy lifting. We've got a little bit of a think tank going on, and Tyson tends to kind of bring a little bit of levity to it as well as kind of keep the focus grounded. And Tyson, dude, you're an absolute gentleman, and thank you for sitting in today in regards to fact checking. I thought you were very kind to me because there was a few other instances that righted themselves, but you could have jumped in again.
My apologies. I'll do better next time.
Oh, no. We're going to do exactly the same thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, like, share, subscribe. Give us something, dude. You're on Google Play. You're on Spotify. Give us something. Something. Sit here begging.
We need it. Come on, guys.
All right, brother. Do you think?
Take care, man.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.